first thing that we're going to do in trying to create or mess with our spreadsheet is we got to find that spreadsheet. So open up Google Drive, and there's a good chance that it might be here in your Google Drive, or like mine's right here. We can always do a search for it by typing in, I think we call it Civil War data, so you can search for it here. Or you can either come over here to where it says recent, and in recent it'll probably show up as Civil War data as well. So this is mine. I'm going to click it twice to open it up. Click, click. And here was that data. Okay, so we entered in all of these different battles and the dates. And we also went through and we found the Union force for each battle. Remember, that was this is the number of people who fought for the northern states, the Union states, in that one battle. Then we also had Confederate forces, so that was the southern states. They had this many people fighting in this one battle. The casualties, those were the number of people who were either killed or who went missing or who were wounded or who were captured. So basically, if there was any way that a soldier cannot continue to fight, they are a casualty. So this was the number of northern soldiers who, after that battle, were either killed, missing, wounded, or captured. And this is the number of Confederates that were killed, missing, wounded, or captured, a casualty. All right, so now let's do stuff with this data. Let's go through, and one of the fun things about spreadsheets is that we can make it do math for us. So let's go through and let's have it do some math for us. What I want you to do is take your mouse and click here in C8. And in C8, what we want to do is add some of these numbers together. So let's say that we have Gettysburg and Shiloh. When we want to add those two numbers together to see, how many people total were there. So we'll start by clicking in this box. And what we're going to do is we're going to write what's called a formula. And a formula is kind of like code. It's going to program the spreadsheet to add two numbers together. So let's start with an equal sign. An equal sign is found right next to backspace. And what this does is it tells the cell we're about to put in a formula. Then we're going to write, then we're going to click, and we can get out of this one, X out. We can click on a cell that we want, like this one. We want Gettysburg cell. Notice that what pops up is C2. That's the name of this cell right here. The next thing that we can do is we can say, the plus sign. We'll use the shift and plus. Plus is found next to the backspace key. And then we will go ahead and find our next number that we want. We can pick any of these numbers, but let's just pick the next one, Shiloh here. I'm going to click that one, and notice how it says C3. So what I did is I said, whatever this is equals C2 plus C3. This says add C2 and C3. When I push enter, there's the number. 144,971. That's easy. Now, if you chose your own battles, then you'll probably get a different number than I am. So this is just an example, but it'll work nonetheless. All right, let's erase. Let's go over here. Okay. Let's add something else. Let's go equal sign. Let's pick any one of these, then the plus sign, and then any other one of these. Let's pick this one. Enter. Wow, just between those two battles right there, 101,844. That's a lot. All right, so you kind of see how that works. Could we add more, you wonder? Let's do this. I want you to erase this number. So I'm going to click the number and either push backspace or delete. Let's click this one, push backspace, it'll erase. So, all right, let's try this something else here. Let's try the equal sign, this number, C2, the plus sign and another number, a plus sign and another number. Push enter to see what happens. Oh, look at that. It adds up all three numbers. Huh. And look what happens when you click back in the cell. When I click this cell, the value is 227,971. But what I see up here, this is where I can add stuff to it. So this is like what the actual cell is. The actual text in the cell is C2 plus C3 plus C4. wonder if we can add more to it. Can we make it so that we can add the rest of the cells? Let's go plus, and let's click the next one. And then plus again, and let's do the next one. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 values all together. Let's push the enter key and look at that. This is going to add it for us all by itself. Woohoo! That is way easier than having to do that on a calculator all by ourselves. And the cool thing is that if any one of these numbers changed, then the number would change by itself. What if this wasn't 27,000? What if this was 500,000 or 50,000? Let's make it 50,000. Watch what happens to my number down here. Hey, look, it changed all by itself. That means that any number I can put in here, it can add all by itself. Cool. All right. Now let's do this one over here. Now, instead of doing all of that, I'm going to show you a trick in a spreadsheet. So I wrote that I want this cell to add up all of these numbers. Now, you might have to practice this, but notice that when I click on this cell, it outlines it in blue. And then there is this little square that shows up here on the bottom. I'm going to find my mouse, and I'm going to put my mouse right on that square. Look how it becomes this cross. When you see that cross, you know that you can click and drag, and it will copy what you wrote in this cell over to this cell, but it will add, or it will change it to the D column. And you can also click it over here and over here. So I'm going to let up on my mouse, and let's see what happens. Kaboom! Notice that this cell now adds up all the columns in D. This cell adds up all the column in E. And this cell adds up all the columns in F. Just like that. Watch me do it again. Ready? I'm gonna come right here. I'm gonna click on that rectangle and drag it over, and it will copy what my formula was and change the values to go along with it. Wow, I just added up all these numbers and I didn't have to do any math at all. This is great. What about subtraction? I wonder if subtraction works. Let's come down here to this number. This is C10. Let's pick two battles and subtract them with the greater number first and the lesser number second. So I'm going to use the equal sign again, equals. I'm going to pick a large number. I'll pick this one. Then I'll use the minus sign. The minus sign is right next to the 0 key. And then I'll pick a second number, and it should be smaller because we subtract we subtract smaller numbers from bigger numbers. When I click enter, look at that. I see that it took this number, subtracted this number, and the difference is this number right here. There were 7,684 more people that fought in Spotsylvania than did in Antietam. Does that work for other things as well? Let's see. Let's pick the largest number. Let's say we're going to go equals. Let's pick the largest number that we see in these two squares. Let's see. The largest number is this one for me. Let's subtract. And let's pick the smallest number in these two squares. Does it have to be in the same column? Let's see. This is the smallest number I see. Enter. Oh, wow. It is able to subtract even from different columns that way. We can do that same thing over here and over here too. Let's try a few of those and see what it would look like. What we're going to do is we are going to make some graphs. So let's talk about how to make some graphs. First, I'm going to make, this is an important column right here, battle name. And this is an important column right here. This is the number of Union forces. But what's not an important column right now is this one, letter B. That date is fine, but it's not really information we're going to use to make our graphs. And to be honest, it kind of throws off how to make the graphs. So we're going to change this. And what we're going to do is we're going to hide it. To hide it, what we want to do is click the B at the top. When you click the B at the top, the whole thing highlights. And you'll also see this little arrow show up. Notice how this arrow has a drop-down menu. And when you click it, this means you can do these things to column B, the whole column. You cut it and copy and paste it, but what we want to find is the one that says hide. Hide the column. This means it's not going to erase it. It's just going to make it so you can't see it. Watch what happens when I click it. So when I click it, notice that now the columns go A, and then these arrows show up, and then C. It means that we've hidden column B. We can get it back just by clicking on these arrows right here. So let me see right there. I put my mouse on those arrows, clicked, and there it is. So it's not gone away. I didn't erase it. I just hit it. Choose the arrow and hide. Try it yourself. All right, so now let's make a graph. We're going to graph the battles and the number of Union forces in that battle. A graph can be a great way to show the information. These are great numbers, but it might be helpful if I can actually see it in a visual form. So to graph it, what we need to do is we need to first select what data we want to graph. To do that, we're going to start up here with battle name and A1. Click and drag so that the highlight goes down to C6, the last battle number, like so. So we started here, we dragged it there. We've highlighted this section. Now what we're going to do is find a graph. The graph is actually on a toolbar. The toolbar is right here. We can insert a chart for this data. Another place that we can insert a chart, though, would be, let's see, insert a chart like that. So we can insert a chart like so. So if you can't find this little logo, go to insert and chart, and that should also do the same thing. Okay, so I'm going to drag it here, say this is the data, make a chart. Now Google is actually going to work its magic, and it's going to say, oh, I know. How about this as a chart? This is a column chart. It says here is the number of people that fought in Gettysburg, and in Shiloh, and in Spotsylvania, and in Antietam, and in Fort Donelson. Now, this is helpful because it kind of shows pretty clearly that actually Spotsylvania had the most amount of people fighting in it, whereas Donelson had the least amount, and the least amount by kind of a lot. Interesting. All right, let's try something else. I'm going to come up here to this triple dot, and I'm going to delete this chart. So we're going to delete it like that. Let's hide column C2, and let's do the same thing for Confederate forces. So I click on C, and I come to the drop-down menu, and I hide it. Now I have battle name next to Confederate forces. I can click and drag this data, come up to this chart, and I get one that looks similar, but it's not quite the same. So let's see what happens if I change this kind of chart. To change this chart, we come over here to where it says column chart. And from here, we can see that we've got actually lots of different kinds of charts to make. Can you find and click on a chart? Maybe like a line chart? Huh. Or maybe you want something like a sideways graph or sideways bar chart. Maybe you want a pie chart. A pie chart is interesting because it shows out of everybody, this is 100%, this is the amount of people that were in Gettysburg, this fought in Shiloh, this fought in Spotsylvania, this one fought here, this one fought here. This is the Confederate forces. So we can see the most number of Confederates fought in Gettysburg. So this is also an interesting kind of graph. It's different than a line graph and a column graph because it kind of puts everything together, adds them all up and says what percent of the total fought here. So Gettysburg, 31%. Fort Donelson, only 8.8%. Interesting. All right, let's try this. Let's delete this graph. So I'm going to go to the triple dots and delete. Okay, I want to start over again. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go up to these arrows. I want to show column A and B again. So I'm going to click on these arrows here. Oh, there's column A and B. That's good. But now what I want to do is I'm going to hide column B. I don't need this column. So let's hide you, hide. Okay, so now what we want to do is I wonder if I could do this, this, and this. Can we make a graph that has the battle name, the number of Union forces, and the number of Confederate forces? Let's see. This is the data that I want. I click and drag all the data. Then I'm going to go to charts. When I click on charts, oh look, they've already put in that blue is for Union, red is for Confederates. And now I can kind of see just how big of a difference these two armies had. In Gettysburg, they're pretty evenly matched. So was it at Fort Donelson. But in some of these other ones, wow, the Union had way more people in them. interesting. We can change this to be other things too. Let's try and change the chart. I want you to experiment around. See what kind of chart you can come up with here. Let's see, maybe a line chart. What would that look like? Okay. What would this is an interesting one here. This kind of puts one in front of the other. This one, let's see here. This one stacks them on top of each other. This kind of shows you then the total number. And of that total, how much were Union and how much were Southern. We can see the total number right here, like Fort Donelson had very few, but some of the other ones had quite a lot. Looks like Fort Donelson, between Gettysburg, there were 3 times the amount of people that fought at Fort Donelson. That's crazy. What about some of these other ones? Let's see, pie chart. So this shows total as well. And then how many were here, 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 and here. So this looks like Spotsylvania had the biggest total between Union and Confederate. Experiment around. Does this map one do anything? No. So some of these won't have anything. And it's kind of neat to see. That's an interesting one. I'm not going to get into why this works the way it does, but try these out. These are all fun to do. Nope, that one doesn't do anything. What about this one? Whoa, it kind of looks like, I don't know what that one looks like. Interesting. Anyway, go ahead. See if you can explore around with these and some more. So the rest of the time is just kind of your time to explore with these. You could try to hide these columns and then do casualties next. You can try and do all of them. Maybe you want all of the columns. Try that. See what that will look like. There's lots of different options for you to do with this. If you want to add more stuff or subtract more stuff, you can try that. You could even try the multiply button if you want. The multiply button is the star that's found on the 8 key. So if you want to multiply 2 things together, you could try equals the cell, the star on 8, and then the other cell and see what happens there. There's lots of different things that you can do to add these 2 things together. So have fun experimenting around, and when we get back together again next time, we'll talk about something else.